So next, I want to provide an overview of function-based behavior support. In simple terms, function of a behavior refers to its reason or purpose. Every behavior is a form of communication, a way for people to express their needs or intentions. Children always find ways to meet their needs through their actions. So if a behavior persists, especially if it's a challenging behavior, it means it actually serves its purpose effectively. Often behaviors are learned and unintentionally reinforced over time. So understanding the function of a behavior is critical because it allows us to move from asking why the behavior is occurring to figuring out how to actually address and change the behavior. Next slide. So when we are talking about analyzing function of the behavior, we often use the ABC framework. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. I'm just gonna talk about it quickly here. So we have the antecedents, which is the A, and the B, which stands for behavior, and the C, which stands for consequence. Antecedents refers to what happens right before the behavior, and the behavior is the behavior of concern or of interest you are trying to address, either to increase if it's a behavior deficit, or maybe you want to decrease if it's a challenging behavior that happens either too often or in a context that may be inappropriate. And consequences are what occurs immediately after the behavior. So additionally, I also want to introduce this concept in our field that might sound a little bit technical, but it's called motivating operations, which kind of really talk about behaviors beyond the immediate antecedent and consequence and involves a broader context. So for example, the child's development history, family history, the environment, and how that behavior has been historically reinforced or not reinforced over time. All those information can have impact of how that behavior occurs or not occur. And this actually also includes past trauma, which can play a significant role in shaping behavior as well. Next slide. So again, antecedent can be anything that occurs a behavior. So example can include if an adult is giving a direction, maybe there is instruction to transit from one activity to another activity and being given a task to do, or maybe sometimes it's a teacher is talking to another student, resulting in a lack of attention. And sometimes maybe it's the overstimulating environments that may have excessive noise or distraction in the classroom. Next slide. When we talk about behavior, so the behavior that we are trying to address or of interest, it is really crucial to operationally define so that everyone working with the child can consistently observe, measure, and address the same behavior. So here is a quick interactive activity here. So we often hear this term about tantrum, right? The child is having tantrum, the child always tantrums, but I want to know, what is tantrum? If you can just chat in the chat really quickly, and we can take a look. Just give me your definition of whatever you think a tantrum is. Screaming, emotional dysregulation, out of control, explosive behavior, a fit, throwing items, whining, crying, and persistent. Oh gosh, you guys are so wonderful giving all those responses. I have a hard time keeping track of them. But anyway, so pounding fists, disruptive behavior used for attention, Yes. So thank you. I cannot read all the responses that you guys put in the chat, but the idea is that they seem to be quite different. They could be pounding fists to screaming, to stomping, to throwing items and explosive behavior, which, it's a little bit hard to know what that exactly entails. So the point here is that, Christy, can you click the slide for me, please? The point, again, thank you. So again, that's the tantrum could be different for each child. Or when we're describing a tantrum of one child, maybe the other person would think about some behavior totally different. So again, it is really, really important for us to really operationally define. Maybe the tantrum contains behaviors such as crying, screaming, stomping their feet, and throwing items. But what exactly that also looks like? Is that the child just having tears, or the child is like screaming really, really bad, or the child is just like throwing their pens away, or the child actually throwing stuff at the wall, breaking other property is in the classroom. So it could look, the intensity and duration and what it looks like can be quite different. We want to make sure we are talking about the same behavior. That is really, really the first step about talking about behavior. Next slide. So in terms of consequence, we're also talking about things that happens right after the behavior. So when a child has a behavior, challenging behavior in particular, adults often respond with actions such as praise or reprimands, or peers or siblings may also react, especially in the classroom setting. It is so hard. I know that we talk to teachers. Teachers are very good at, regulate their own behaviors to not react to certain behaviors, but it's so hard to not give that peer attention to certain behaviors, because you are trying to teach a lot of kids to try to not show they are being distracted or they are not responsive to those certain behaviors. It is definitely a challenge. And also consequences can include changes in the environment. So for example, it could be that you give a task and then there's a challenging behavior, and then suddenly the math worksheet is being removed, and then maybe the child is getting a break, or sometimes being sent to the principal's office, which can be good or bad to child, depending on whether that's reinforcing to them or punishing to them. And also remember, behavior principles works both ways. It does not only work on children, it also works on adults as well. So if we see challenging behavior happens in the classroom, adults, teachers, or other supporting educators may feel like reluctant to give directions, even if doing so will feel like punishing for you as well, because dealing with challenging behavior, let's be honest, no one likes it. I don't like it. So I understand. And which can also inevitably reinforce the behavior in the long run as well. Next slide. So here's a slide about a quick overview of function-based behavior support, which includes 4 functions of the behavior. There's an acronym called as SEAT. S stands for sensory, E stands for escape, A stands for attention, and T stands for tangibles. So related to sensory, this function involves behavior that provides preferred sensory experience or just feel good to the individual. These behaviors can occur anytime, even when the child is alone. And escape function occurs when a behavior helps the individual to avoid or remove something undesirable, such as tasks or interactions that are too hard, too easy, too boring, or too scary. So that's one thing. We often think about tasks or interactions being too hard, but sometimes it could be too easy. right? If a child is really, really, gifted in learning, and you are giving them like very easy tasks, and they might find this really, really not fun, and they might engage in challenging behavior to get out of it as well. All like interaction, right? Sometimes we think that adult attention could be real, always positive and good, but for some children, especially for children maybe with autism or other disorders, at times they may find interaction aversive, not enjoyable. So they may want to get away from that situations as well. And then the next one is attention. So attention provides access to social interaction or engagement with others. It often occurs when the individual seeks social interaction, when there's a low level of engagement. So maybe thinking about what we talk about the broader environment. If a child is not getting enough attention at home and is in an environment that is not very enriched, then the child may have the motivation to engaging in certain behaviors or need to have more attention from other adults in their environments.
And Alice, it looks like we have, sorry to interrupt, it looks like we have a hand raised. I wanted to see if Rosanna had a question.
Yes, absolutely. Do we have a question here? We can absolutely, talk about questions anytime, and we can also talk about it later when we have time for questions as well.
All right, well, we'll let her chime in later if there is a question. Thanks, Alice. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So the next one is tangible, which involves obtaining preferred items or activities, such as there's always popular toy, and sometimes when one child starts playing with a toy, suddenly that toy becomes really, really popular. And oftentimes when we talk about the four functions, the seat, we also understand the behavior sometimes serves multiple purposes or functions as well. So it could be that the child is trying to escape from a really difficult task so that they can access tablet time to play video games. So sometimes it can become a little bit more complicated. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Maybe click another click. Sorry, I have some animation on there. So when we talk about the functions, we also want to think about function-based strategies. So looking at now, first, I want to look at the antecedents and look at what we can do to make the problem behavior or challenging behavior irrelevant by creating an enriched environment, meaning that there's really not motivation for them to engaging in challenging behavior. So I think I might have a chat in here as well. I don't know whether we have enough time. Maybe I will just skip this one, considering the time and leaving enough time for discussion. So when we think about creating enriched environments, so for example, providing enough attention, maybe every 10 minutes or so, you are going to provide some attention like to the kids, either through like a simple high five and eye contact, good job, a pat on their back, or maybe it's creating the environment by providing a lot of interesting toys, books, and an enriched environment. And also being mindful about the environment where there's not a lot of stimulants that could be overwhelming to certain kids as well, because the enriched environment can be a little bit too much as well. So another way that when we look at antecedent strategies is to teach alternative behavior, which is something that I'm going to talk about some strategies in terms of if we can teach kids how to get what they want and being able to ask and communicate, then they do not need to engage in challenging behavior to get that. So there's a fun picture, but I also know, one more click, please. Yeah, here's the fun picture, right? This kid is saying, so let me get this right or straight. I do not have to scream or crying to get a cookie, right? If we can tell the child, hey, if you want a cookie, say, can I have a cookie? Cookie, please. Then the child does not need to engaging in a tantrum. Next slide. So we also want to look at the consequence as well. So with consequence, what we really want to do is to make the problem behavior ineffective or inefficient, meaning that we're going to stop reinforcing the challenging behavior and trying to reinforcing the alternative behavior. So if I say, I start crying and then try to get my cookie and that's not going to work anymore, and then I started learning about, say, cookie please, and then I get a cookie, what happens is that challenging behavior is ineffective. And also comparing to just say, cookie please, it's so much easier, right? I do not have to engage in all that crying and screaming and everything. And sometimes it may not even work. So becoming more efficient with that as well.